Thank you, Jan, and thank you for the invitation. Mary and I are looking forward to this very much indeed. Let me just first of all explain, Visit Britain is the trading name for the British Tourist Authority. What are we? We are the National Tourism Agency, and it embraces the organisation Visit Britain, whose job is, funny enough, to encourage people from around the world to visit Britain. And we'll go into why and how and why it applies here to Hertfordshire. And then there is Visit England, which is part of the same organisation, and that concentrates on the English landscape of tourism. And more of that later, because you're saying, what on earth does he mean by that? But their job is not to invite people in. Their job is to make sure that when they come here, it is fit for purpose and will encourage people back. So that's broadly what we do. I'm the chairman. I'm a public appointment, which means once I'm here, it's very hard to get rid of me for about 3 years. I was appointed 2 years ago. Before that, I was chairman of Visit England. It's a part-time role. And one of the things I do is advocacy for the organisation, and that's one of the things I'm doing here with you. But that advocacy is cross-government, it's abroad, and very much trying to shape policy makers, and you might think, what's the relevance? And you will find out, to make things a little easier, for example, to visit Britain, which we're interested in doing. But I want to talk about a thing less tourism than the whole wider concept of the visitor economy. So, had anyone really heard the term visitor economy before tonight? Yes, or you're a cheat, you don't count. So one, maybe two, and you haven't. So you have, sir, great. Now, that is obviously embraces, funny enough, visitors. Let me just ask you, if I may, if I said to you, what are the businesses that you would find in the visitor economy? What would spring to mind? Now, I'm pretty mean because I'll just pick on someone if someone doesn't put their hand up. So a typical business operating in the visitor economy. Any thoughts, any ideas? Hotels. Excellent. What did you say, sir? Weatherspoon. We'll go there later. As I say. No, absolutely. Hospitality, pretty huge. Yes, very much so. Yeah. Any other things? Historic buildings. Yeah.
Railways.
Well, transport. So we are including airlines in that. We're including the trains, we're in the buses. Interesting fact. How many of us here moan about the trains? Come on, be honest. How many of you moan? Only. Oh, that's more like it. I was in Australia, which is one of our key markets. They think our trains are very, very good. So there you go. Okay, so the visitor economy. Now, it's attractions. It's everything from your Madame Tussauds to more locally, you would think of some attractions in the area, wouldn't you?
Hertford Civic.
Sorry?
Hertford Civic.
Yes, the one in Broxbourne you're thinking of. Yes, I should know its name, shouldn't I? Nebworth House, some Hatfield House, places like that. Obvious attractions. There are others that are involved in this. It's a very wide industry. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. What do you think the biggest industry is in the United Kingdom, apart from financial services, which is just right out there? Stop it. Right. So an industry. Hospitality is big, yes, but we would include that as very much part of the visitor economy. I'm going to draw a comparison. So you might think of cars, you might think of the automotive industry, you might think of aerospace, engineering, things like that. The visitor economy is... Yes, agriculture, yeah, very topical at the moment. We should have some left, you never know. So the key thing there is the visitor economy, which includes all those things I talked about, is actually 9% of our GDP. It is about our fourth largest industry in the United Kingdom, and you wouldn't know that because it's so fragmented. It's so spread over lots of different regions. It's also our fourth largest export service industry. It's earning pounds for Britain, and I think that's important. But, you know, where does it all come from? This isn't. I never used PowerPoint. I think Mary kind of, I thought she was going to be all very PowerPointish, so I decided to do some. These are the markets where our visitors come from. Here, the USA, they rock. They are smashing it. We bring in just under £40 billion worth of income to this country. Okay, so that's pretty good. They are dishing up a huge share of that. You can see it's 16.4%. They're normally pretty good. It's made up, by the way, of not just what you would think is your classic visitor, but visiting friends and family is a classic link, which is why these guys down here are growing really fast, 4.2% share of those that come here. Huge link with friends and families in the United Kingdom. These guys, they spend a fortune, which is extremely welcome, and we'd like more of it. In truth, Australia, the Gulf states, they stay longer when they come here, probably because you travel a long way. That's not an unreasonable thing to do. And they actually go into the regions. Because one of the challenges we have is all the visitors coming here, over 50% will go to London and the neighbouring southeast. And we want to work hard to say there is a much bigger offer out there in the regions. And I will sell you on some of the regions as well. So you kind of see where the split is there. Now, the visitor economy also is quite significant for domestic tourism. Something like in 2019, which was the last normal year, if you like, because we've been in recovery since then, there were 99 million overnight stays from domestic visitors in the United Kingdom. They are part of the visitor economy. And obviously, you can imagine a lot more of the country was seen post-COVID as well. But it's Hertfordshire. I couldn't quite break it down to Hertford when I said to our wonderful statistics team, tell me, how does Hertford benefit from the visitor economy? So here you go. How many jobs are there? Well, this spells it out. In food and drink, 10,500, accommodation, 3,000, retail, 5,500. That's understandably part of the process. Entertainment, transport, and other. So linked to the visitor economy, you're actually talking about a significant number of jobs here, 22,000 jobs locally there. The expenditure it comes in, we look right across from accommodation, retail, food and drink, entertainment and transport, which is, again, there's a little bit of double accounting in this, but it's broadly driven by visitors and visitors to the economy. You can actually see the scale of, I hope you can all see the scale of it here. So for example, accommodation, £144 million is spent in visits to the Hertfordshire. Over here on the right, you kind of get more of a breakdown of the whole area. And here we are in East Herts. 4.4 million visitors. That's something I hope you'll be happy about, because they're spending money in your area, okay? Value of that money is just shy of 300 million. And locally, 5,500 jobs. So you're really talking about something, there's not many industries that employ that. But we do have challenges, and I was going to talk about challenges at the end, but I'll tick them off as we go along. When it comes to working and careers, actually it's a real challenge for this industry. There are hotels that can still only open 80% of the time because, frankly, they can't get the staff, yet the demand is up there at 100%. And that's echoed. And the challenge there is we have a job to empower younger people coming into the workforce, and older people, but thinking in terms of careers, to understand that the visitor economy is a career. It is not a bucket and spade holiday job. And part of that process is also convincing our political masters to understand the scope of the visitor economy, because most people's experience of it is actually a little bit here and a little bit there, and it's hard to see the whole picture. So you can go into this. It has a huge impact on social mobility. What do I mean by social mobility? It is one of the few industries. You can start in a hotel, you could be working on the door or on the floor as a waiter, you could be a porter, And sitting on my board is someone who went in at very low level entry, is now main board director of that company and on the BTA board. And it is where there is rapid social mobility and the entry level is pretty good. There is a problem with pay at the lower end, but it's improving. And that's because of the effects of supply and demand. So they're one of the challenges, is to actually make people see, for us to help people see the opportunity. Basically, all this chart is going to say, it gives me an opportunity to say something about something you'll never know, but you'll soon forget, but it's relevant to Hertfordshire, I'm sure. Have you ever heard of things like Visit Yorkshire, Visit Hearts, of course. These are what we call, or used to call, destination management organisations, and their job is to structure, I think they're one of your co-sponsors, aren't they, at the Chamber of Commerce? No? All right, we'll sort that out then. And their job is to help bring together all the disparate aspects, this fragmented industry I've talked about, and help give them the opportunity of one voice. It's also to help drive visitors to here on their behalf. It is to make the case to local policymakers why it's not a good idea to put a bus route down there, because it doesn't help the visitor economy a bit. And what we could do with is this, we could do with this, or we could do with that. They are an organisation that exists across the country. When I took over, I kid you not, I could not tell you how many of these organisations there were. In 2010, the then government decided they'd withdraw from effectively a little bit of funding, but basically having anything to do with local destination management organisations. And they said those that are good will flourish and those that won't, well, no one needs them. That was the logic, okay? So I was asked to do a review about, I don't know, three, maybe 4 years ago. And first job was to find out how many there were. I never found out. But I will tell you that it meant we were working, DMOs were often in competition with each other rather than collaborating with each other. So at the end of the long review, I made recommendations that we strip it back to about 40 or 50 across the country and added one smaller tier above it for strategic issues. That is what that is basically saying, that you now have, and Visit Hearts is one of those, that is what we call a local visitor economy partnership. What a sexy name. I mean, it just rolls off the tongue. But it does what is sent on the tin. We now have a voice for the visitor economy that has the ability to speak with one voice to the planners of an area, so that tourism becomes more regenerative. What it means is that you can build and develop an area taking the community with you, as opposed to where you see some of the problems from over-tourism that people have talked about. And it helps shape a place, it helps bring jobs, and it helps actually promote the area as part of a wider collaboration with, in this case, East of England. So that's all really that was trying to say. But what are the responsibilities of Visit Britain? How do we work? Part of our job is research. So we are meant to collect data, and we then share that data with government to inform policy. The idea is, if we have the good data, when we are going to government and saying, look, can you change this, please? Let me give you an example. It could be, could you, for example, look at easing visa restrictions or reduce that form from 40 pages for people who are coming from one of our biggest markets to maybe 20 pages? We have more chance of getting them to visit us. Well, how do you know that? We produce the data. Anything that we do, it talks about the numbers of people who are coming, where they're coming from, what they are spending. I can tell you the average spend of an Australian visitor is £1,167 a night. It's useful, right? It's not bad, is it? Okay. It also allows us to build data, therefore, where do we concentrate our marketing efforts? Because it's not just about chasing volume, it's actually far from it. We're trying to follow a policy of regenerative tourism, which is as much about sustainable tourism, but also visiting parts of the country that are not, if you like, over-visited. And it goes back to the idea of building in the region. So of that share of those visitors who come to this country, Only 4% go to the northeast. And they have some of the most beautiful coastlines in Northumberland you will ever see anywhere in the world. But we have to work to help people get there. We have to provide the transport, we have to provide the links, we have to have the product offer. And that's not going to be us doing it, but we can help facilitate it, and so the rest of the market will deliver it. And that is a key goal for Visit England to do. Now, huge breaking news for you. We spend some money on marketing and advertising. The truth is, you will not see it, basically, because you're here. It's not about domestic advertising, it's about reaching those foreign markets. And our data started to show that over half of visitors who are thinking of coming to Britain, over half, they want to visit a place that has been in a film. And that's set jetting, not jet setting, set jetting. Okay, so we've worked with the Film Commission and others to develop a campaign that will build on the phenomenal success of UK locations being built in films. Here's a stat, promise you it's true. I've been quoting it for about 3 months and I've only just come to believe it because I keep challenging it. In the United Kingdom, last year, we produced more films than Hollywood. That is how popular we are as a destination, which is quite a phenomenal thing. Okay, so there's the ones you will have heard of and the ones you haven't. And what is so beautiful about this is that those films are not all produced in London. They are produced all over the place. Anyone watch Bridgerton? Seen Bridgerton series? That's in Bath. So it sends lots of people out to Bath, part of it. Harry Potter. Come on, you must take the grandkids to Harry Potter at some point. Have you heard of Harry Potter? Yes, okay. Well, at Alnwick Castle in Northumberland, you can now go up there and see the castle, which was obviously a key feature of the film, in case you weren't aware. But you can get lessons to learn how to fly a broomstick. So an industry has grown up around this right across the country. And this set jetting campaign will actually, we believe, help drive not just the visitors that we want to come here, but visitors, which includes visitors who will be going to regions and parts of the country, which I think is going to be hugely impactful and will help deliver one of the strategic goals of the government and by extension of Visit Britain as well. Funny enough, it's a great variation from country to country who's really interested in film tourism. You wouldn't be surprised that Japan and Australia are right up there for coming to locations. And there's probably perceived something quite special about standing here, whether it was on the road that James Bond drew up in Skyfall towards the end, that you must have seen James Bond. You've heard of James Bond, haven't you? Come on. Right. So, and there are a tremendous amount of films, and I can rattle more and more off as to how that works. Hertfordshire is actually, of course, very much at the heart of the film industry. You've got the Harry Potter studios, for example, and it's not just working to get visitors, it's actually working to, create that second Hollywood in Hertfordshire. And I was quite intrigued, actually, because, where is this? This one. Let's just take a little look at this to give some perspective, because this is all about how the visitor economy will benefit as well. That is not happening all over the country, but it is happening here in Hertfordshire, which I think is terrific and actually gives me the encouragement to have even more faith in the set jetting campaign. So what's the future looking like? Really very, very interesting. First of all, this is obviously, I've been upbeat, but there is some harsh realities we are having to face. Over the next 2 or 3 years, and it's been a tough recovery for this industry since post-COVID, it's been a very tough recovery. We are facing very stiff competition from our neighbours. Potentially, we could be losing our competitive edge to places like France, which, nothing motivates you more to do better. That should do it. So we have work to do on that score. We know, for example, that there will be new influences on holidays. At the moment, Gone are those days when actually going to lie on a beach was it, and you'd have a good time, have a couple of beers, glass of wine, and that was pretty much your holiday for 2 years. Activity is at the heart of many people's choices for holidays. And that is why the product offering that the private sector are developing over the country includes quite sensational things, like in North Wales, you can get on the world's longest, or certainly Europeans' longest, that's it. And they took me up there and they said, would you like to do it? And I said, no. But lots of people will want to do it. Wales has more castles than anywhere else, can you believe? Scotland has an amazing draw for many people, particularly from Germany actually. Draws a lot of people there as well as the Americans. And yes, the things like the whiskey industry are hugely popular, but you have to do a tour. You have to taste it and have an authentic experience when you go there. People are looking more and more for those sorts of things. And that's happening right across the country. And that is an evolving thing, and that is a good thing. But it requires that we get the market conditions right to be able to bring more and more people here. There are barriers. So we have lost some advantages, and I think we still can gain some advantages. Overnight, the whole youth mobility schemes that were withdrawn after 2016, or eventually it was 2020, whenever it was, 2021, meant that English language schools and English language holidays, for a phenomenal amount, we lost because our government said you can't come over unless you've got a passport. Actually, in Europe, many people don't have passports, but they have the identity cards. That's now beginning to change, and so it should, so that people can come over and instead of going to Malta, where English is spoken a lot, then they have their English language tours and schools and holidays. They come back to England. So there are challenges that we've had there to do it. And as I say, the visa entry systems, you may not have heard, but if you've been to America, you pay a few quid to go into America on a thing called an ESTA. Well, we have now just introduced one that's coming in and being rolled out as the same thing. You know, it might be £7. It varies, of course, depending which country you go on. But £7 each might not sound a lot, but actually if it's £10, it still doesn't sound a lot, but if you've got a family of 4, that's £40. So all these things are coming in, other countries have them, we have them. To do that though, we've got to make our welcome and our offer as attractive as possible, and we've got to try and make it as simple as possible to get holiday visas, without compromising the nation's security obviously, rather than having them too complex. And that requires a magic thing. It requires not the Department for Tourism, there isn't one, but they sit within DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media, Sport. It requires visas are in the Home Office. Transport is in, well, the Transport Department, and on it goes. And you have to get this magic thing called cross-government working and cooperation, which can happen. The new government are committed to it, and hopefully we will see some changes bring that in. So, when you go into a hospitality unit to have a meal or a drink and you see some visitors from another country, my appeal to you is recommend them another dessert. Make them spend more. Make them enjoy it and feel welcome, because they are providing jobs for you, your families and your heirs. It's a fantastic industry to be in. I've overrun a bit there, but I hope that's given you a full flavour of what we do.